anytime anyone asks me for advice, I'm always like, listen, so much of it is luck, but you do make your own luck. And so people, when I was in Burnley, and I'll back up to how I got there, but when I was in Burnley, people could not believe it because Burnley, for those who don't know, is almost the Compton of England. I mean, it's a really tough area to live in and not a lot of wealth, and it's a tough area. And so what's so crazy is I came from Malibu to Burnley. So people thought I had mental issues. They're like, what's wrong with you? Why would you go from here? And what happened was there was a guy named James Perry. James Perry used to be the Liverpool FC U23 coach. And so he came to America and he started doing some private coaching. My older brother Zev was involved in that. I got to play a little bit. And then here I am. I'm in college. So I'm a freshman in college. And I reach out and I see that his dad, after a few training sessions, his dad is Rick Perry. And for anyone who looks up Rick Perry, he's the ex-chairman of Liverpool. So here I am, a freshman in college. I reach out on LinkedIn and I just say, hey, I want to get involved in the business world of soccer. I love soccer. Maybe I want to be a CEO of a football club one day. Not sure what I want to do. And I've got some interesting insight on that. But what happened was he basically said, hey, so a lot of internships right now, it's just not really a thing. You could go intern and be marketing, or you could do like learn more about transfers. But at these big clubs, it's almost like you're going to an Amazon. If you go to a Man City or a Man United. And so he said, you could go to one of those clubs and I can put you in contact. But my friend is David Baldwin and he's the chairman of Burnley. And I had really not heard of Burnley too much, to be honest, because they were just coming up in that year I went. And so here I am. And he said, you're going to get to be what's called basically the meeting taker. And so I would transcribe all the notes from the meetings. Anytime there's a transfer or any business deal, I was his assistant. And so what I did was I got to spend time literally with the CEO, transfers coming through. And the next day I was doing marketing work. And then I spent a week in security. I spent a week in ticket sales. So I did all of these different jobs. And the only reason I got the job was because I was crazy enough to reach out to this. Imagine you go train with a guy and then you find out, hey, that maybe his dad has something. And the only reason I figured that out was because I heard a little chatter that his dad was a somebody. So I looked him up, reached out on LinkedIn, sent him a message. He replied. And from there, we just had a few discussions. On a Thursday, he said, you want to go to Burnley? On a Monday, I was in Burnley, and it was literally a 3-day turnaround. So if you go to like a Man City, there's going to be interns. They're going to have a program. What was so cool about Burnley is that I was almost their first intern. They had never had an intern. They couldn't believe someone would want to come learn from them. And there was maybe 40 people at the club working versus a Man City where there's 600 people. And so when you're at a Burnley, it really is family. And I learned that when they were telling me a story about how one day Danny Ings was dribbling down the line, crossed it. Sam Vokes hit the post. And because he hit the post and didn't score, that goal would have got them first place instead of second place. And that meant their kid wasn't going to private school because that goal goes in and the tuition changes. Everyone gets a bonus. So what I viewed as, wow, soccer's fun, I now saw, wow, there's this business side to it. And so the craziest part is I thought I wanted to be a CEO of a Burnley or something like that. And what I learned was I didn't. And what I found was throughout all this time, I didn't want to come home after working in soccer all day and watch more soccer. And that's the first time it had happened to me. And so I found out maybe this isn't for me, but I really like the financial side of it. So that's how I've blended that into do what I do today, where I still play all the time. I still get to do everything. But to answer your question, when it came to Burnley, I was really the only intern there. And I was really just the assistant to David Baldwin, who has since moved on and is now the head of the championship. So crazy. That's the thing is most people, there's a lot of internships out there, and I think they're always great to do because you get to learn what you do and don't like. And I thought that was what I wanted to do with my life. And kind of getting to see the passion slowly drain was interesting because all these people love soccer just like I did. But then what happens is your job becomes dependent on that, and it's hard to separate that, right? Your career and what your passions are. So what they did was to be very nice is they kind of said, listen, this is on your own. You want to learn how this works. This is on you. And so, which is kind of what I figured, but I spent my own money on the plane ticket. So went over there, housing, they set me up with a nice situation, but I was still paying maybe 600 a month. So very cheap, but you're still paying something. But when I eventually did leave, they gave me a very nice check just to say, hey, thanks for all the work you did, which pretty much, not fully, but it pretty much covered the trip for the whole time. So what I did, some of my job duties, which were really security, where I wrote out the whole stadium and made a roadmap of, hey, when people enter, is there a smarter way? You know, what entrances should we use? What shouldn't we use? I got to go into the locker rooms, and believe it or not, I bet your locker room was nicer than the away locker room at Burnley. And so the home locker room's pretty nice. You got a few toilets, they've got an ice bath, they got the whole deal, and they seated cushions. But the away locker room, I mean, I cannot imagine. I mean, I was not in a worse away locker room at Puget Sound because, and I asked Burnley, how is this legal? Like, how? And they're like, we want teams so uncomfortable that if we can get any advantage to win the game. And I was just shocked because it was the worst locker room I'd ever seen. And it was a Premier League club. And it's kind of, there's famous stories about it now where the team, it's hard to give a team talk because some guys literally have to stand in the stalls to make sure there's enough people. So you've got a guy standing in a stall trying to hear Mourinho behind the back. So it's like just kind of wild. And yeah. Favorite things were I was in on the transfer when Matthew Loughton, who's the right back, and he actually scored a really good goal this year. So it's cool. But the two coolest things I did were whenever there were meetings going on, I didn't know, how does a team find a player? Like, what does that even look like? Like, we've all played FIFA and gotten to see the BBC report and all that, but what's really happening at a club behind the scenes? And it's really not that different than you would think, where I'm in a meeting, right? Then there's the chairman. We've got a few coaches on the left. We've got scouts, which is different, obviously. It's really like, hey, who do we think fits our system? You put them all on the table and you talk about it. And you say, okay, who fits the system? The financials come after, which is what I thought kind of came before, like who fits our budget. They're more so like, hey, we think this guy's awesome. And Matthew Loughton at the time was, I think, playing at Villa. So he was in the Premier League, and they're like, we want a good right back to help bring us so up to the standard of Premier League. And so that's how that discussion went. So I got to be the guy taking meeting notes. So I would take all the notes from the meeting, learn everything. And then anytime they had questions about what we talked about, I'd get to relay that. But my favorite part of the job was I got to be the guy during the Player of the Year awards. So every team at the end of the season, they give out 4 awards. They basically give out best young player. They give out a best player. They give out a best, like almost like a goalkeeper award, because the goalie's never getting any love, right? So you kind of have to have like a separate award for them. And then they give a player's Player of the Year. And that's the most important, because it's who do the players vote was the most impactful. And I got to give the awards each time. I just would take them and give them to each player. And after, and this is kind of, it's not vulgar, but almost after what happened is there was a big party. And so I was in the taxi right after, trying to help players get to go to the party event. So here I am, part of the event, doing the thing where I'm making sure everyone's getting taken care of, whatever, right? So we get into the taxi, and I'm trying to tell the taxi, I'm trying to coordinate, okay, we need a car for Tom Heaton over here. We need a car, whatever. And finally, I'm in the last taxi, and a few guys hadn't left yet. So I'm like, okay, they can come with me to the party. And it's Kieran Trippier, who's now playing at Atletico Madrid, and he's an England, national. And so what's crazy is I'm sitting next to Kieran Trippier holding his award. He's like, can you hold this for a second? And I'm shaking. And he's like, why are you shaking? I'm like, well, you're Kieran Trippier. Like, this is crazy to me. And so that was kind of a cool experience. Is I was on the night of the big party. I was the guy holding all these awards of all the things that players won. And they were like, don't drop those. Like, those mean a lot. So here I am. And at the same time, they're trying to get me to drink with them because it's a party and they're coming up to the Premier League. And it was a special time because, as you know, Burnley aren't the greatest team right now. And so it's not like they're going to have fun years. But when you come up, it's a fun time. So they're celebrating. I'm holding all these trophies. They're trying to give me drinks, and I'm trying to. So that was kind of a crazy night. Yeah. And so I got signatures of all the guys. I've got framed stuff all over my house. And so I grew up an Arsenal fan originally. Like I was saying, Zev was a Chelsea fan, my brother. And so that was kind of our rivalry. But Burnley, they have a special place in my heart because of that. And just getting to, during work, during the summer, they're doing stuff on the grass, but I can always sneak on the pitch and go take a pen just to, feel like I'm celebrating, what would it feel like and all that stuff. I wasn't supposed to do that stuff, but didn't get to play with the players, but I did get to spend a few training sessions with the under 18s. And so I kind of got to get a taste of what it's like to play with Burnley players. And that was awesome. What I learned was that I kind of kept my own at a few of the drills, and then there were a few where I definitely didn't. And the 5v2, the stuff that you love, like me and you, where we're technical players, well, that's fun and it's awesome to play with these guys. But they were really trying to hurt me because they viewed it as this is my life, and they viewed me as, hey, this is some guy who wants to come play soccer, and so they were kind of out to hurt me, and I didn't really blame them.
I see.
But luckily, I didn't get hurt. So very team collaborative. Every person that I was working around had been there over 15 years. So you're part of that Burnley culture. Think about what it's like when you work at any corporation. It's very rare that you get to celebrate something. Maybe you sell a big project. Maybe you create a product and sell it, and it's awesome that one time. But this is a family that Monday through Friday, and I didn't get to go to the games because I'm there during the summer, but Monday through Friday, they're working normal jobs. They're talking. It's good banter. It's very loose. Um, it's no ties or anything crazy like that. And on Saturdays, or every other Saturday, because there's away games, but every Saturday, they're all getting together. They want Burnley to win. It feels really special. And so what I really like and I want to implement in the current company I'm with and whatever it is I want to do in my future is what's special is they have a common goal. And everything they do, whether it's writing a letter to a season ticket holder or making sure that the turnstile works better when someone goes through to go to the game, that's everyone's doing something with the goal in mind that we want to win on Saturday or Sunday, whatever. So it's a really special culture because not that often in life is there this way to, okay, let's work all week and then we're all week. Monday, okay, 5 days from game day. Tuesday, 4 days from game. It's like a countdown every week. And we've got this team coming up and there's this cool tension and you win and the city's alive. And so what's amazing is Burnley, and I could probably look it up, but I don't know the exact population, but there was 20,000 seats at Burnley. And so basically half the town was going to the games. And so it's pretty amazing. Imagine half of LA going to an LAFC game or something like that, you know. Not that different than trying to get any job. I think most of these guys, like a Rick Perry, who was an ex-chairman of Liverpool, people go, well, he's never going to respond to my message. And yeah, I mentioned that I've trained with his son a few times, but you know, I assumed he's getting these messages all day. And so I would say, really just find what it is you want. And maybe what it is you want, maybe you've never even heard of Aston Villa or you don't want to go there, but it's a small club. Maybe you want to go to a Crystal Palace because you want to live in London. So what you do is you go on LinkedIn and you look up Crystal Palace and you find some positions and you start messaging, and maybe you take advantage of the free trial for the month of LinkedIn and get the premium and send to connections. But it's really about going to their website, sending personalized email. There's now this awesome thing. I don't know if you're familiar with bombs, but instead of writing an email, what you can now do is send a video, maybe even, and it's recording your screen. And so you can kind of walk through a little bit about your profile, who you are. It's almost like, let's get creative because you don't ever know if you do or don't want something, but there's only one way to find out, and it's go do it. And so people can definitely do that. I think people just don't know that's an option. And these people aren't getting reached out to left and right like I thought. And so anytime someone reaches out to me, just like yourself, I'm like more than happy to, give advice and do the call because people just sometimes don't know. And it's almost just taking the leap. Say just go for it. Like so often in life, we kind of hesitate. We're not sure what makes most sense. And so what I would say is two things is it's as simple as go for it. And people say, okay, go for it. They kind of get like a hope of motivation. They want to go do it. It's like you go on LinkedIn. If that sounds like something that's interesting to you, you go do some research. You go to their websites. You make them a video. You almost do these weird things where you say, hey, John, I don't know what your life looks like, but here's what I'm looking for. Do you mind helping me point me in the right direction? Or is this something that you want help with? And always offer, which is, I would say, maybe not everyone's in that financial position, but offer to pay for it yourself. They're probably not gonna, people are too good to just say, hey, we're not gonna give you anything. We know there's a lot going on here, but to just say, hey, I'm willing to pay for this myself. Now you don't want to do a bluff and then be like, oh, actually, and they say, great, come. And you're like, actually, I can't afford it. So you don't want that, but it's not bad to have that in the conversation of like, hey, financially where I'm at is here and here's how much I want to do. I really want to make this happen. Can we meet somewhere in the middle? Something like that. Then the second thing is for any listeners here who really are interested in the financial side, I have a podcast now with personal finance redefined, where the whole idea being is money is just stressful. It stresses so many people out. My parents grew up stressed out about it, just so many families. And so this is my way of giving back to say, okay, money doesn't have to be stressful. Whether it's investment stuff, whether it's tax planning, whether it's getting an estate set up, there's all these things, and you almost like don't want to fill out the form wrong. And so when you're doing taxes or all these other things, I just view it the same way I view soccer, which is like, let's use mental chess, but I just use that with money. And so when I'm going to the field and I'm playing or I'm at work, I'm just doing chess. It's just soccer versus money. And so that's kind of how I view it. So if anyone has any interest, that's, a place they can go for some financial tips.